Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've had an amendment for some years. This year, it's House Joint Res 77 that proposes an amendment limiting the pardon power of the president. When introduced it in the previous Congress, some might have thought that it was aimed at Donald Trump. And indeed, his actions did inspire it. But it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander. And I introduced it again this year, and so it would be effective with President Biden. One of the things it does is it makes clear the pardon power really hasn't worked as it should for several reasons. But this particular provision would say the president shall not have the power to grant pardons or reprieves to him or herself, number one. Number two, to any member of their family up to the third degree or a spouse thereof, any current or former member of the president's administration, any person who worked on the president's presidential campaign as a paid employee, any person or entity for an offense that was motivated by direct and significant personal or pecuniary interest of any of the foregoing persons, or any person or entity for an offense that was at the direction or the coordination with the president. So this would affect would have affected Mr. Trump, it would affect Mr. Biden now, and who knows who it might affect after that, but it affects everybody. In my opinion, the president does not have the power now to pardon him or herself, but they shouldn't. The pardon power, that would put one person absolutely above the law. And I don't think they should be able to pardon any member of their family, whether it's their brother, whether it's their son, whether it's their daughter. That should be prohibited. It's just too inside baseball. And with pardoning people that are part of your administration or people in your campaign, again, it's almost like pardoning yourself because they're your representatives. And we saw Trump, of course, pardon Manafort and what's the guy with the hats? Roger Stone and several others. Taking care of people and trying to keep them quiet. Mr. Spalding, what do you think about limiting the pardon power in these ways or any other ways?
Would certainly, Mr. Cohen, be interested in reviewing the language, given the breadth and scope of the pardon power. No question that we were on the brink. We saw abuse of the pardon power, but for all the examples you just gave about close associates of the former president, his recent interview just over the weekend, continuing to dangle this concept of a self-pardon merits serious consideration. And I think outside of the constitutional amendment process, there is pending legislation, the Protecting Our Democracy Act, which would also ensure more transparency into the pardon process and would ensure that you have the information that you need as a member of Congress to provide effective oversight and to further understand how the pardon power is being used or abused.
I think Mr. Flynn was pardoned too, if I remember correctly. Flynn, Stone, Manafort. Who are some of the others I might have forgotten? There was.
There were a number. I won't opine off the top of my head, but as he was out the door, a number of pardons.
Anybody else in the panel remember any of the people that Trump pardoned that were kind of part of his team? Want to offer anything? No? Is it Tam Balutis?
Close enough.
I'm sorry. I listened to your testimony and you said some member of Congress, I think you said it was a member of Congress, put out these pamphlets.
Right.
And you said he spent $1 million. I'd like to have his MRA. Who was that member of Congress that you said spent $1 million?
Well, that was my estimate based on the size of our district and the number of mailers that were sent out, but that was my Congressman Bill Posey who did that. But it's a practice that's all too common here in Congress, and it's a way that incumbents are able to...
When was Bill Posey a member of Congress?
I'm sorry, sir?
Is Bill Posey a member of Congress now?
Yes, correct. He's a member of Congress from Florida.
He's a freshman?
No.
Well, he's like DeSantis. He hadn't done anything yet. Some of the Florida congressmen, you don't know they're on the committee until they run for governor. And then you find out they're on the committee. $1 million is much more than anybody could have in their MRA to spend that money. They'd have to have like no staff to because you pay your staff out of that, your transportation, your travel, et cetera. You're exaggerating.
Well, it's a series of mailers that have been sent to my house for years and years and years, sir, so I was referring to the aggregate spending on that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Spalding, what about pardoning members of a president's family, whether it's Hunter Biden or whether it's whoever, the daughter that had the Chinese patents or copyrights?
I think that would be an abuse of the pardon power.
Yeah, it should be limited. I proposed it, and I propose it again, and I think if it's good for one, it's good for the other, and I don't think there should be pardoning of family members. And that would certainly, if you think that the president did something involved with his son, this would be a way to make sure that let the son know that if he's going to do something like that, that he's not going to get any benefit on the back end. So I think it would help a lot. Let me ask also.
Gentleman's time's expired, right?
That's quick.
Yeah, no, it's been expired for a while.
I'm sorry. Thank you for giving me that extra time.
Yes, sir.
I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields time he has not.